Welcome, dear listener, to another peaceful evening of Christmas storytelling. Tonight, we're traveling to the charming town of Pine Ridge, Vermont, where the snow falls gently on cobblestone streets and the air is filled with the warm scent of hot chocolate and cinnamon. This is a story about Emma, a woman seeking a fresh start, and Jack, a man who's made his home in a place where Christmas magic feels as real as the morning frost. It's a tale of competition and connection, of finding love in the most unexpected places, and of discovering that sometimes the best things in life come disguised as challenges. So settle in, make yourself comfortable, and let the gentle rhythm of this story carry you to a place where twinkling lights dance on snow, covered market stalls, where the warmth of community wraps around you like a cozy blanket, and where love blooms even in the heart of winter. Take a deep breath. Let your shoulders relax and allow yourself to be transported to Pine Ridge, where our story begins on a crisp December morning. Chapter 1. Arrival and First Impressions. The first snowflakes of December were dancing through the crisp morning air as Emma Sullivan's red Honda Civic rounded the bend into Pine Ridge, Vermont. Her breath caught as the picturesque town spread before her like a Christmas card come to life. Victorian houses lined the tree-bordered streets, each one adorned with twinkling lights and evergreen wreaths. Smoke curled from brick chimneys, and somewhere in the distance, church bells chimed the hour. But it was the town square that made Emma's heart skip. The Pine Ridge Christmas market was in full swing, even at 9 in the morning. Dozens of wooden stalls formed a magical maze around the towering evergreen that would serve as the town's Christmas tree. Vendors were already setting up their displays, hanging garlands and arranging their wares. The scent of pine, cinnamon, and something deliciously sweet drifted through her partially open window. Emma pulled into a parking spot and sat for a moment, gripping the steering wheel. 3 months ago, she'd been a corporate marketing executive in Boston, climbing the ladder at a prestigious firm. Now, she was about to become a Christmas market vendor in a town where she knew exactly one person: her great-aunt Rosemary, who had left her a small cottage and a mysterious key to something called Rosemary's Sweet Spot. Her phone buzzed with a text from her best friend Madison. Second thoughts yet? It's not too late to come back to civilization and your corner office. Emma smiled, typing back, "No second thoughts. This is exactly where I need to be." And it was true. After her breakup with Trevor, who'd made it clear that her career would always come second to his, and the subsequent burnout that had left her questioning everything, Emma had felt lost. When the lawyer's call came about Aunt Rosemary's inheritance, it felt like a sign from the universe. She grabbed her purse and the thick folder containing her vendor application, business license, and insurance papers. According to the market coordinator, her great-aunt's spot had been reserved for her, but Emma wanted to make sure everything was in order. She'd spent the last 2 months perfecting her recipes and business plan for Sweet Beginnings, a gourmet hot chocolate and baked goods stand that would honor Aunt Rosemary's memory while launching Emma's new life. The market was busier than it had appeared from the car. Families wandered between stalls, children pointing excitedly at handmade toys and their parents sampling local honey and preserves. A group of teenagers was already gathered around a booth selling caramel apples, their laughter mixing with the sound of Christmas carols playing from speakers hidden throughout the market. Emma checked her phone for the address she'd been given and made her way through the maze of stalls. She passed a beautiful display of handcrafted ornaments, a booth selling knitted scarves and mittens, and a vendor arranging the most gorgeous wreaths she'd ever seen. The sense of community was palpable. Vendors called out greetings to each other, and everyone seemed to know everyone else. She was so busy taking in the sights that she didn't notice the man carrying a large tray of steaming mugs until it was too late. "Watch out!" he called, but Emma, startled by the warning, stepped directly into his path. The collision was spectacular. Hot chocolate went flying, covering both of them in rich brown liquid. Emma found herself pressed against a very solid chest, strong arms wrapped around her to keep her from falling. For a moment, she was surrounded by warmth and the scent of chocolate, and something distinctly masculine, cedar and winter air. "Are you okay?" The voice was deep, concerned, and right next to her ear. Emma looked up into the most striking pair of green eyes she'd ever seen. The man holding her was tall, with dark hair that looked like he'd been running his fingers through it, and a face that belonged in a magazine. But it was the genuine concern in his expression that made her heart flutter. "I'm fine," she managed, though she was anything but. "I'm so sorry. I wasn't watching where I was going. No harm done," he said, but he didn't immediately let go of her. "Well, except to my hot chocolate supply." Emma looked around at the disaster zone they'd created. Broken ceramic mugs lay scattered across the cobblestones, and they were both thoroughly doused in chocolate. Other vendors had stopped what they were doing to stare, and Emma felt heat rise in her cheeks. "I'll pay for the damages," she said quickly, finally stepping back from his embrace. "All of it. The mugs, the chocolate, your clothes. Hey, accidents happen." He was smiling now, a crooked grin that transformed his whole face. "Though I have to say, this is a first for me. Usually, people wait until they've tried my hot chocolate before they're desperate enough to bathe in it." Despite her embarrassment, Emma laughed. "Is it that good?" "Best in Pine Ridge," he said with mock seriousness. "Though I suppose I'm biased." "You're a vendor here?" "Jack Morrison, Morrison's Mountain Cocoa." He gestured to a nearby stall that Emma now realized she'd been standing in front of. It was one of the largest and most established-looking spots in the market, with a permanent awning, professional signage, and a line of customers already forming despite the early hour. "And you are?" "Emma Sullivan. I'm taking over my great-aunt's spot." She held up her folder, which thankfully had remained chocolate-free. "Rosemary's sweet spot? I'm turning it into sweet beginnings." Jack's friendly expression shifted, becoming more guarded. "Rosemary Sullivan was your great-aunt?" "Yes. Did you know her?" Everyone knew Rose. His voice had cooled noticeably. She was Rose. Quite the character. Emma sensed there was more to the story, but before she could ask, a woman's voice called out behind her. "Emma! Is that you, dear?" She turned to see a plump woman in her 60s hurrying toward them, her silver hair perfectly styled and her cheeks pink from the cold. She was wearing a red coat that matched her lipstick and carried herself with the confidence of someone who knew everyone and everything that happened in town. "I'm Margaret Chen, the market coordinator," the woman said, reaching out to clasp Emma's hands. "I've been so excited to meet you, though I wasn't expecting quite such a colorful introduction to our market." "Mrs. Chen, I'm so sorry about the mess," Emma began, but Margaret waved her off. "Please, call me Margaret, and don't you worry about a little spilled chocolate. Heaven knows we've had worse accidents here." She shot a pointed look at Jack, who had the grace to look sheepish. "Jack, be a dear and help me show Emma to her spot, would you?" "Of course," Jack said, though his enthusiasm seemed forced. They made their way deeper into the market, past more stalls and vendors. Emma tried to ignore the way Jack's presence beside her made her hyper-aware of every step, every breath. She was here to start over, to build something of her own. The last thing she needed was to be distracted by a handsome stranger, no matter how warm his arms had felt, or how his smile had made her stomach flip. "Here we are," Margaret announced, stopping in front of a small stall that had clearly seen better days. The wooden structure was sound but needed fresh paint, and the awning was faded and patched, but it was positioned perfectly, right in the center of the market, with foot traffic flowing past from all directions. "It's perfect," Emma said, and meant it. She could already envision how it would look once she'd cleaned it up and added her own touches. "Your great-aunt ran this spot for 30 years, Margaret said fondly. She had quite the following. People would come from 3 towns over just for her hot chocolate. Emma glanced at Jack, who was studying the stall with an unreadable expression. What kind of hot chocolate did she make? "The best kind," Margaret said, "secret recipe, passed down through generations. She always said the secret was in the love you put into it." She paused, looking between Emma and Jack, "though I suspect you two might have different opinions about what makes the best hot chocolate." "Competition is healthy," Jack said evenly. "May the best vendor win." There was something in his tone that made Emma's spine straighten. "Win what?" "The Golden Mug Award," Margaret explained. Every year, the market votes for the best vendor. It's quite the honor. The winner gets a prominent spot in next year's market and a feature in the Pine Ridge Gazette. Emma looked at Jack, who was watching her with those green eyes. I take it you've won before? 3 years running, he said, not without pride. Well, Emma said, lifting her chin, I guess we'll see about that. For a moment they stared at each other, the air between them charged with something that was part attraction, part challenge. Then Margaret cleared her throat. Wonderful. I do love a bit of friendly competition. Now, Emma, let's get you settled. The market opens to the public at 10, and you'll want to be ready. Jack, don't you have customers waiting? Jack glanced back at his stall, where indeed a small line had formed. Right. Emma? It was interesting meeting you. Likewise, she said, watching as he walked away. Even covered in chocolate and slightly disheveled, he moved with confidence, greeting his customers with genuine warmth. That boy's been the king of hot chocolate around here for years, Margaret said quietly. But he's gotten a bit too comfortable with winning, if you ask me. A little competition might be just what he needs. Emma smiled, her business instincts kicking in. She'd spent years in corporate marketing, learning to analyze competition and identify opportunities. Jack Morrison might be established, but that didn't mean he was unbeatable. What was my great-aunt like? She asked as they walked around the small stall. Spirited, Margaret said with a laugh. Determined. She didn't back down from a challenge, and she didn't suffer fools gladly. But she had the biggest heart in Pine Ridge, always organizing food drives, helping families in need, making sure everyone felt welcome at the market. And her hot chocolate? Legendary, though. Margaret hesitated. She and Jack had quite the rivalry going. Nothing mean-spirited, mind you, but they were always trying to outdo each other. New flavors, creative presentations, special promotions. It kept things interesting. Emma felt a flutter of excitement. Do you think she left me her recipes? I certainly hope so. She was quite secretive about them. Margaret pulled out a set of keys and handed them to Emma. These are for the stall and the storage area underneath. Your great-aunt kept all her supplies and equipment down there. Emma accepted the keys with reverence. Thank you for everything. Don't mention it, dear. Your great-aunt was special to all of us. We're hoping you'll be just as wonderful. Margaret paused. Though I should warn you, Jack's not going to make it easy for you. He's competitive, and he's used to winning. Good, Emma said, surprising herself with her vehemence. I didn't come here for easy. As Margaret walked away, Emma stood alone in front of her new business, her new life. The stall was small and needed work, but it was hers. She had 3 weeks until Christmas, 3 weeks to prove herself worthy of her great-aunt's legacy. She unlocked the storage area and climbed down the narrow stairs. The space was larger than she'd expected, with shelves lining the walls and professional equipment covered in dust cloths. But it was the small recipe box sitting on the workbench that made her heart race. With trembling fingers, she opened it. Inside were dozens of recipe cards, written in her great-aunt's careful handwriting. Rose's Secret Hot Chocolate read the top card. The secret isn't in the ingredients, it's in the love. But a little cinnamon doesn't hurt either. Emma laughed, feeling tears prick her eyes. She could almost hear her great-aunt's voice, warm and encouraging. At the bottom of the recipe, there was a note for my Emma, who will understand that the best things in life are worth fighting for. Give that Morrison boy a run for his money. Emma clutched the recipe card to her chest, feeling more determined than ever. Jack Morrison might be the reigning champion, but he was about to discover that Emma Sullivan didn't go down without a fight. The Christmas market rivalry was about to begin. Chapter 2. Getting to Know You. The next morning, Emma arrived at the market before sunrise. Determined to make the most of her first official day, she'd spent the previous evening cleaning the stall and organizing her supplies, and now she was ready to test her great-aunt's recipes. The market was peaceful in the early morning, with only a few vendors setting up their displays. Emma loved this quiet time, when the only sounds were the soft conversations of the vendors and the distant hum of the town waking up. She'd just finished arranging her first batch of homemade marshmallows when she heard footsteps approaching. She looked up to see Jack Morrison walking toward her, carrying 2 steaming coffee cups and looking far too alert for 6 in the morning. "Peace offering?" he said, extending one of the cups toward her. Emma hesitated, then accepted the coffee. "Thank you. That's very kind." "I felt bad about yesterday," he said, leaning against the counter of her stall. "I was short with you, and that wasn't fair. You're new in town, and I should have been more welcoming." "You were covered in hot chocolate," Emma pointed out. "I think you were entitled to be a little gruff." Jack laughed, and Emma felt that same flutter she'd experienced yesterday. "Still, I wanted to make amends. Plus, I brought reinforcements." He gestured behind him, where a golden retriever was bounding toward them, tail wagging enthusiastically. "That's Coco," Jack said as the dog reached them, and immediately began trying to convince Emma to pet him. "He's my unofficial mascot and official taste tester." Emma knelt down to scratch behind Coco's ears, and the dog practically melted with joy. "He's beautiful. How long have you had him?" "About 3 years. I found him as a puppy, abandoned behind the market during a snowstorm. Couldn't leave him there." Jack's expression softened as he watched his dog. "He's been my business partner ever since." "Smart hiring decision," Emma said, laughing as Coco rolled over to expose his belly for scratches. "I bet he's great with customers. The best. Kids especially love him." Jack paused. "What about you? Any pets?" "I had a cat named Fitzgerald in Boston, but my ex kept him." Emma tried to keep the bitterness out of her voice. "Probably for the best. Fitz always liked Trevor more than me anyway." "Trevor sounds like an idiot," Jack said matter-of-factly. Emma looked up at him, surprised. "You don't even know what happened." "Don't need to. Anyone who would choose a cat over you clearly doesn't have his priorities straight." Heat flooded Emma's cheeks. "You don't know me either." "I know enough," Jack said quietly. "I know you dropped everything to come here and carry on your great-aunt's legacy. I know you're brave enough to start over in a new place where you don't know anyone. And I know you make Coco happy, which is no small feat." Emma stood up, brushing dog hair off her jeans. "Speaking of starting over, I should probably get back to work. I want to have my first batch of hot chocolate ready when the market opens." "Right," Jack said, but he didn't move immediately. "What are you making?" "My great-aunt's secret recipe. Or my interpretation of it, anyway." Emma gestured to her prep area, where she'd laid out cinnamon sticks, vanilla beans, and several types of chocolate. "I'm still working on getting it exactly right." Jack's eyes lit up with interest. "Mind if I watch? I promise not to steal any trade secrets." Emma hesitated. Every instinct she developed in the corporate world told her not to reveal her strategy to the competition, but something about Jack's genuine curiosity and the way he'd apologized for his behavior yesterday made her want to trust him. "Okay," she said, "but you have to promise to give me an honest opinion." "Deal." Emma began her process, explaining each step as she went. She started with the highest quality dark chocolate she could find, melting it slowly with cream and milk. Then came the secret ingredients, a touch of cinnamon, a whisper of vanilla, and something her great-aunt had called the magic ingredient. "What's the magic ingredient?" Jack asked, leaning closer to watch her work. "Salt," Emma said, adding just a pinch to the mixture. "It enhances the chocolate flavor and balances the sweetness. My great-aunt wrote that it was the secret to making people remember your hot chocolate instead of just drinking it." Jack nodded thoughtfully. "Rose was smart. I use a similar technique, but with a different approach." "What's your secret?" Jack grinned. "If I told you, it wouldn't be a secret anymore." Emma stirred the hot chocolate, inhaling the rich aroma. "Fair enough. But you did promise to give me an honest opinion." She poured the steaming liquid into 2 cups, topping each with a swirl of whipped cream and a sprinkle of cinnamon. She handed one to Jack and took a sip of her own, trying to taste it objectively. It was good, rich and smooth, with the perfect balance of sweet and bitter. But something was missing. It didn't have the depth of flavor she remembered from her great-aunt's hot chocolate during her childhood visits. Jack took a careful sip, his expression serious. Emma watched his face, trying to read his reaction. "Well?" she asked when he didn't speak immediately. "It's very good," he said finally. Smooth, well-balanced, the salt was a nice touch. But, Jack met her eyes, but it tastes like someone made it following a recipe. Rose's hot chocolate tasted like it was made with love. Emma felt a stab of disappointment. I don't understand. It's not about the ingredients, Jack said gently. It's about the intention. Rose didn't just make hot chocolate, she created an experience. She knew her customers, remembered their preferences, made them feel special. That's what you taste in her hot chocolate. Emma stared down at her cup, feeling deflated. So you're saying I need to get to know the customers? I'm saying you need to get to know the town, Jack corrected. Pine Ridge isn't just a place to sell hot chocolate. It's a community. People don't just come to the market for the products. They come for the connections. Before Emma could respond, she heard Margaret's voice calling her name. The market coordinator was approaching, with a young woman who looked to be about Emma's age, with short auburn hair and a camera hanging around her neck. Emma, I'd like you to meet Sarah Peterson, Margaret said. She's the reporter for the Pine Ridge Gazette, and she's doing a story about new vendors at the market. Nice to meet you, Emma said, shaking Sarah's hand. Though I'm not sure I'm interesting enough for a story yet. Are you kidding? Sarah said with a laugh. The great niece of Rose Sullivan, taking over the legendary Sweet Spot? That's front-page material. Plus, Margaret tells me you're going to be giving Jack some competition in the hot chocolate department. Emma glanced at Jack, who was watching the exchange with amusement. I'm certainly going to try. Mind if I ask you a few questions? Sarah pulled out a notebook. What brought you to Pine Ridge? Emma found herself telling Sarah about her corporate burnout, her breakup, and her decision to start fresh. She talked about her great-aunt's legacy and her hopes for sweet beginnings. Throughout the interview, she was aware of Jack listening, though he pretended to be focused on his own prep work. And what do you think about the competition? Sarah asked, gesturing toward Jack. Any concerns about going up against Pine Ridge's hot chocolate champion? Emma straightened her shoulders. I think competition is healthy. It keeps everyone on their toes. Fighting words, Sarah said with a grin. Jack, any comment? Jack looked up from the display he was arranging. I think Emma's going to be a great addition to the market. Rose would be proud. There was something in his tone that made Emma look at him more closely. Despite his friendly words, she sensed there was more he wasn't saying. Well, this should make for an interesting Christmas season, Sarah said, closing her notebook. Mind if I take a few photos? Emma posed for several pictures, trying to look confident and professional. When Sarah left, promising to send her a copy of the article, Emma found herself alone with Jack again. You didn't have to say those nice things, she said, about my great-aunt being proud. I meant them, Jack said simply. Rose loved this market, and she loved this town. She'd be happy to know someone who cares about her legacy is carrying it on. Even if that someone is your competition? Jack was quiet for a moment, then looked directly at her. Emma, can I ask you something? Sure. Why are you really here? I mean, the real reason, not the story you told Sarah. Emma felt her defenses rise. What do you mean? I've seen a lot of people come to Pine Ridge thinking they want the small-town life, only to leave when they realize it's not as simple as they thought. You had a successful career in Boston. You could have started over anywhere. Why here? Emma considered the question, surprised by how much she wanted to answer him honestly. Because I was tired of being someone I didn't recognize, she said finally. In Boston, I was successful, but I wasn't happy. I was working 80-hour weeks, trying to impress people I didn't really like, in a relationship that was more about convenience than love. When my great-aunt died and left me this place, it felt like a sign. A sign that maybe there was another way to live, that maybe I could build something that mattered, instead of just climbing a ladder that led nowhere I actually wanted to go. Jack nodded slowly. And you think hot chocolate is the answer? Emma laughed, hearing how it sounded. I think connection is the answer. Community. Building something that makes people happy instead of just generating profit for shareholders. She paused. My great-aunt's recipes are just the vehicle. That's a good answer, Jack said. Though you should know, building community isn't something you can do overnight. It takes time, trust, and a lot of patience. Are you trying to discourage me? I'm trying to prepare you, Jack said. Pine Ridge can be wonderful, but it can also be challenging. People here are loyal, but they're also protective of what they care about. You'll need to earn their trust. Emma studied his face, trying to understand what he was really telling her. And you? Do I need to earn your trust too? Jack's expression grew serious. Emma, I like you. I think you're brave and determined, and I respect what you're trying to do. But I also know this market, and I know what it takes to succeed here. I've worked hard to build my business, and I'm not going to go easy on you just because you're new. I wouldn't want you to, Emma said, meaning it. Good, Jack said, because the Christmas season is our busiest time, and the Golden Mug Award isn't just about bragging rights. It's about reputation, and reputation is everything in a town this size. Emma felt a thrill of excitement mixed with nervousness. So what you're saying is, may the best vendor win? Jack smiled, and for the first time since they'd met, it seemed genuinely competitive. Something like that. As the market officially opened and the first customers began arriving, Emma threw herself into her work. She served cup after cup of hot chocolate, learning names and preferences, listening to stories about her great-aunt and the role Sweet Spot had played in their lives. But throughout the morning, she was aware of Jack's presence, of the steady stream of customers at his stall, and the easy way he interacted with them. He clearly knew everyone, their names, their families, their favorite flavors. He was part of the fabric of Pine Ridge in a way that Emma could only aspire to be. By noon, she was exhausted but exhilarated. She'd served over 50 customers, and while her hot chocolate was good, she could see that Jack was right. It needed something more. During a brief lull, she looked over at Jack's stall and made a decision. She walked over, noting the professional setup and the impressive array of hot chocolate variations he offered. "How long did it take you to build all this?" she asked. Jack looked up from the register, where he was making change for a customer. "About 4 years. I started with just basic hot chocolate and added new flavors and options as I learned what people wanted." "And the customers? How long before they started treating you like family?" Jack's expression softened. "That's the thing about Pine Ridge. They don't just treat you like family. If you earn it, you become family. But it doesn't happen overnight." Emma nodded, understanding. "Jack, can I ask you a favor? Depends on what it is. Will you help me understand this place? I don't want to be just another vendor who comes and goes. I want to be part of this community." Jack studied her for a long moment. "Even though we're competitors?" "Maybe because we're competitors," Emma said. "Competition without respect is just meanness. But competition with respect, that's how everyone gets better." Jack smiled, and this time it reached his eyes. "Your great-aunt used to say something similar. Will you help me?" "I'll make you a deal," Jack said. "I'll help you understand Pine Ridge, and you help me remember why I fell in love with this place to begin with." Emma frowned. "What do you mean? I've been doing this for 4 years, Emma. Sometimes success can make you complacent. Maybe having some real competition will remind me why I started Morrison's Mountain Cocoa in the first place." Emma extended her hand. "Deal." Jack shook it, his grip warm and firm. "Deal. But I'm still going to try to beat you. I wouldn't have it any other way." As they shook hands, Emma felt something shift between them. The attraction was still there, but now it was mixed with something more complex. Respect, understanding, and the thrill of a challenge that would push them both to be better. The Christmas market rivalry was officially underway. Chapter 3. Christmas Magic begins the third day of Emma's tenure at Sweet Beginnings, dawned crisp and clear, with fresh snow dusting the market stalls like powdered sugar. Emma arrived early, as had become her habit, but this time she wasn't alone. Jack was already there, setting up his display with Coco supervising from his favorite spot on a pile of blankets. "Morning, neighbor," Jack called out, his breath visible in the cold air. "Morning," Emma replied, unlocking her stall. "You're here early." "Couldn't sleep. Too excited about today." Jack grinned, and Emma noticed he looked particularly pleased about something. "What's today?" "You'll see." Jack's mysterious smile made Emma's stomach flutter. "But first, I brought you something." He walked over to her stall carrying a small wrapped package. Emma accepted it cautiously. aware that their relationship was still finding its footing between competition and friendship. "It's not a bribe," Jack said, reading her expression. "Call it a welcome gift." Emma unwrapped the package to find a beautiful ceramic mug, handmade and painted with delicate snowflakes. "It's gorgeous. Did you make this?" "My sister Annie did. She's a potter. I thought you might like to have something special for your own hot chocolate." Emma turned the mug over in her hands, touched by the thoughtfulness of the gift. "Thank you. I love it." "There's more," Jack said, producing a second package. "This one's practical." Inside was a small chalkboard sign and a set of colored chalk. "For your daily specials," Jack explained. "Every successful vendor needs good signage." Emma felt unexpected tears prick her eyes. "Jack, this is so kind. I don't know what to say." "Say you'll use them," Jack said simply. "And maybe return the favor someday." Before Emma could respond, the sound of children's laughter filled the air. A group of elementary school students was approaching the market, led by a young woman with dark hair and paint-stained fingers. "That's my sister Annie," Jack said. "She teaches art at the elementary school. They're here for the annual Christmas ornament workshop." Emma watched as the children spread out through the market, their excitement infectious. Several of them ran straight to Jack's stall, clearly familiar with him. "Uncle Jack!" A little girl with pigtails called out. "Are you going to make us special hot chocolate?" "Of course I am, Lucy," Jack said, ruffling her hair. "But first, I want you to meet someone special. This is Emma, and she's Rose's great niece." The little girl's eyes went wide. "Rose, who made the best hot chocolate in the whole world?" "That's right," Emma said, kneeling down to Lucy's level. "Did you know my great-aunt?" "She was my favorite," Lucy said solemnly. "She always remembered that I like extra marshmallows, and she let me help her sometimes." Emma felt her heart squeeze. "Would you like to help me sometime?" Lucy nodded enthusiastically, then skipped off to join her classmates. Emma stood up to find Jack watching her with an unreadable expression. "She was Rose's favorite too," he said quietly. "Lucy's mom died 2 years ago, and Rose kind of adopted her, made sure she felt special every time she came to the market." Emma felt the weight of the legacy she was inheriting. "I don't know if I can fill those shoes." "You don't have to fill them," Jack said. "You just have to walk your own path." Annie Morrison approached them, wiping her hands on her apron. She was petite like Jack was tall, with the same green eyes and warm smile. "You must be Emma," she said, extending a paint-stained hand. "I've heard so much about you." "I'm Annie, Jack's sister, and the reason he has any artistic sense at all." "Hey," Jack protested, "I have plenty of artistic sense." "You think symmetry is the height of artistic achievement," Annie said fondly. "Emma, please tell me you have better taste than my brother." Emma laughed, immediately liking Annie. "I think your brother has excellent taste. He chose to set up shop in the most beautiful town I've ever seen." "See?" Jack said smugly. "I told you she had good judgment." Annie raised an eyebrow. "Interesting. Jack doesn't usually approve of his competition." "We're not exactly competition," Emma said quickly. "More like friendly rivals." Annie said, clearly not buying it. "Well, friendly rival, would you like to help with the ornament workshop? The kids love having new adults to boss around." Emma looked at Jack, who nodded encouragingly. "I'd love to." The next hour was pure magic. Emma found herself surrounded by children ranging from 6 to 10, all eager to create the perfect Christmas ornament. She helped them paint wooden stars and snowflakes, listening to their chatter about Christmas lists and holiday traditions. "What's your favorite Christmas tradition?" asked a serious-looking boy named Michael. Emma thought about it. "I think it's hot chocolate on Christmas morning. My mom and I used to make it together when I was little, and we drink it while we opened presents." "That's what Rose used to say," Lucy piped up. "She said hot chocolate was like a hug in a cup." "That's a beautiful way to put it," Emma said, making a mental note to remember that phrase. "Are you going to stay here forever?" asked another little girl. "I hope so," Emma said, surprising herself with how much she meant it. While the children worked on their ornaments, Emma found herself watching Jack interact with them. He was a natural. patient, encouraging, and genuinely interested in what they had to say. Several of the children clearly saw him as a favorite uncle, and he seemed to know all their names and interests. "He's good with them," Annie said, appearing at Emma's elbow. "He is. Does he have children of his own?" "No. But he wants them someday. He's just been waiting for the right person." Annie glanced meaningfully at Emma. "Jack's had his heart broken before. He's careful about who he lets in." Emma felt heat rise in her cheeks. "We're just friends. Business neighbors, really." "Uh-huh," Annie said with a knowing smile. "Just friends who look at each other like that." "Like what?" "Like you're trying to figure out if you can trust each other with something important." Before Emma could respond, Jack approached them with a tray of small cups. "Special hot chocolate for the artists," he announced. Emma watched as he distributed the cups, noting how he'd made each one slightly different. Extra marshmallows for Lucy, a cinnamon stick for Michael, whipped cream shaped like a star for the little girl who'd asked about Emma's plans. "How do you remember all their preferences?" Emma asked. "Practice," Jack said, "and caring about the details that matter to people." Emma tasted her own cup and was surprised by the complexity of flavor. This wasn't the same hot chocolate she'd had before. It was richer, more nuanced, with layers of taste that revealed themselves slowly. "This is incredible," she said. "What did you do differently?" Jack smiled mysteriously. "Trade secret. But I will say this. The best hot chocolate isn't just about the recipe. It's about the moment you create around it." Emma looked around at the children, now happily sipping their hot chocolate while their ornaments dried. The market was busy with other customers, but somehow this corner felt like its own little world, warm and magical and perfect. "I think I'm beginning to understand," she said. "Understanding is good," Jack said, "but you'll need to find your own way to create those moments. What works for me might not work for you." Emma nodded, her mind already racing with possibilities. She'd been so focused on perfecting the recipe that she'd forgotten about the experience. But watching Jack with the children, seeing how he made each of them feel special, she realized that was the missing ingredient. "Emma!" Lucy called out. "Will you help me write my name on my ornament?" "Of course," Emma said, kneeling down beside the little girl. As she guided Lucy's small hand to form the letters, Emma felt a sense of peace settle over her. This was what she'd been searching for without realizing it. Not just a business, but a purpose. A way to be part of something bigger than herself. "There," she said, as Lucy finished the last letter. "Perfect. It's going to go on our Christmas tree," Lucy said proudly. "Right next to the one Rose helped me make last year." Emma felt tears threaten again. "I'm sure Rose would love that." "She would," Lucy agreed. "She always said Christmas was about making memories that last forever." Emma glanced up to find Jack watching her, his expression soft. "Your great-aunt was a wise woman," he said quietly. "She was," Emma agreed, "and I'm starting to understand what she was trying to teach me." The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur of customers and conversations. Emma tried to apply what she'd learned, taking time to chat with each customer, remembering details about their preferences, making each interaction feel personal and special. By the time the market closed, she was exhausted but exhilarated. She'd sold more hot chocolate than any day since she'd opened, but more importantly, she'd begun to feel like she was becoming part of the Pine Ridge community. As she was cleaning up her stall, Jack approached with 2 steaming cups. "Peace offering," he said, handing her one. "I thought you might need this." Emma accepted the cup gratefully. "Thank you. It's been quite a day." "Good quite a day, or overwhelming quite a day?" "Both," Emma said honestly. "I learned a lot watching you with the children. You're a natural teacher." "I had good teachers myself," Jack said, "your great-aunt being one of them." Emma looked at him curiously. "What did she teach you?" Jack was quiet for a moment, staring out at the market as the last vendors packed up their stalls. "That success isn't just about being the best at what you do. It's about being the best at caring about what you do and the people you do it for. Is that why you came to Pine Ridge?" "Part of it," Jack said. "I was working in corporate food service in Denver, managing cafeterias for office buildings. Good money, stable career, but I felt like I was just going through the motions." Then my grandmother got sick, and I came here to help take care of her. Rose was her best friend, and she kind of took me under her wing. What happened to your grandmother? She passed away 3 years ago, but by then I'd fallen in love with Pine Ridge. Rose helped me see that I could build something meaningful here, something that mattered. Emma felt a deep connection to his story. That's exactly why I'm here. I was successful in Boston, but I wasn't happy. I wasn't making a difference. And now? Emma looked around at the market, at the twinkling lights and the traces of the day's magic. Now I think I might be exactly where I'm supposed to be. Jack smiled. Rose would be proud of you. You've got good instincts, Emma. Trust them. Even if they lead me to compete with you? Especially then, Jack said. Competition without fear is just another word for growth. Emma raised her cup in a mock toast. To growth, then. To growth, Jack agreed, clinking his cup against hers. As they stood there in the gathering dusk, the market quiet around them, Emma felt the Christmas magic that everyone in Pine Ridge seemed to talk about. It wasn't just in the decorations or the snow or the holiday music playing softly from the speakers. It was in the connections between people, in the shared moments of joy and warmth and community, and somehow, impossibly, it was in the growing attraction between her and the man who was supposed to be her rival. Jack, she said impulsively. Yeah? Thank you. For today. For the gifts. For helping me understand what this place is really about. Jack's expression grew serious. Emma, I need you to know something. What? I meant what I said about competition. I'm going to do everything I can to win that Golden Mug Award. It's important to my business, and it's important to me. Emma felt her heart skip. I understand. But I also need you to know that I'm glad you're here. Pine Ridge is better with you in it, and I think I am too. The words hung in the air between them, charged with possibility and complexity. Emma wanted to step closer, to explore what was happening between them. But she also knew that would complicate everything. I should go, she said finally. Early morning tomorrow. Emma, Jack said as she turned to leave. Yes? May the best vendor win. Emma smiled. Oh, I intend to. As she walked to her car, Emma could feel Jack watching her. The Christmas market rivalry was definitely heating up, but she was beginning to realize that winning might be more complicated than she'd originally thought. Because how do you compete with someone you're falling for? Chapter 4. Deepening Connection. The Pine Ridge Christmas Festival was in full swing, and Emma had never seen anything quite like it. The entire town seemed to have transformed overnight into a winter wonderland, with ice sculptures lining the streets and every surface covered in twinkling lights. The market had expanded for the occasion, with additional stalls selling everything from handmade crafts to roasted chestnuts. Emma arrived at her stall at dawn, determined to make the most of what was traditionally the busiest day of the year. She'd spent the previous evening preparing special holiday treats. Gingerbread cookies shaped like snowflakes, peppermint bark, and a new hot chocolate flavor she'd been perfecting. Morning sunshine? Jack's voice came from behind her as she arranged her display. Emma turned to find him approaching with cocoa and what appeared to be a small army of helpers. A teenage boy and girl who looked like younger versions of Annie, and an older man with silver hair and kind eyes. Emma, meet my family, Jack said. This is my dad, Frank Morrison, and my younger siblings, Tommy and Kate. Nice to meet you all, Emma said, shaking hands with each of them. Frank had a firm handshake and the same warm smile as his children. We've heard a lot about you, Frank said with a twinkle in his eye. Jack can't seem to stop talking about his new competition. Dad, Jack warned, but he was smiling. Is it true you're going to challenge Jack for the golden mug? Tommy asked. He looked to be about 16, with the Morrison family's distinctive green eyes and an eager expression. I'm certainly going to try, Emma said. Finally, Kate exclaimed. She was maybe 18, with Annie's petite frame and an infectious energy. Jack's been getting way too comfortable with winning. He needs someone to keep him humble. Kate, Jack said with mock offense. I'm perfectly humble. You literally have a trophy case in your living room, Kate shot back. Emma laughed, enjoying the family dynamic. A trophy case? 3 golden mugs and a few other awards, Frank said proudly. We're very proud of what Jack's built here. but we're also excited to see what you bring to the market, Kate added. Jack showed us some of your cookies yesterday. They're amazing. Emma felt warmth spread through her chest. He tried my cookies? He bought a dozen, Tommy said. Said it was research. Jack's cheeks reddened slightly. I like to know what I'm up against. Uh-huh, Kate said with a knowing look. Is that why you've been talking about Emma's innovative flavor profiles and natural marketing instincts all week? Kate, Jack said in a warning tone. I'm just saying, Kate continued, undeterred. It's nice to see you excited about something again. You've been kind of, I don't know, going through the motions lately. Emma saw something flicker across Jack's expression. Surprise, maybe, or recognition. I haven't been going through the motions. Haven't you? Frank asked gently. When was the last time you were really excited about a new recipe or a new idea? Jack was quiet for a moment, considering. I've been focused on consistency, giving customers what they expect, but not what they don't know they want yet, Emma said quietly. Jack looked at her with surprise. What do you mean? I mean, maybe Kate's right. Maybe you have been playing it safe. Success can be comfortable, but comfort can also be, she searched for the right word, limiting. Exactly, Kate said. Emma gets it. Frank clapped his hands together. Well, this should be an interesting day. Jack, show Emma your new setup. Emma looked over at Jack's stall and gasped. He'd completely transformed it for the festival. Instead of his usual simple display, he'd created what looked like a mountain lodge scene, complete with artificial snow, miniature evergreen trees, and a rustic wooden sign that read, Morrison's Mountain Retreat. Jack, this is incredible, Emma said, walking over to get a closer look. When did you do all this? Couldn't sleep last night, Jack said, running a hand through his hair. I kept thinking about what you said about creating experiences, and I realized I'd been treating my stall like a transaction instead of a destination. Emma examined the details, the careful arrangement of props, the way the lighting created a cozy atmosphere, the small touches that made customers feel like they were visiting a winter cabin, rather than just buying hot chocolate. It's beautiful, she said, meaning it. Your customers are going to love this. I hope so, Jack said. I've been playing it safe for too long. What changed? Emma asked. Jack looked at her directly. You did. Watching you approach everything with fresh eyes, seeing how excited you get about new ideas. It reminded me why I fell in love with this business in the first place. Emma felt her heart skip. Jack, I know we're competitors, he said quickly, but I want you to know that having you here has made me better at what I do, and I'm grateful for that. Before Emma could respond, the sound of a brass band filled the air. The festival was officially beginning, and soon the market would be flooded with visitors. Showtime, Frank said with a grin. Good luck, kids. As the Morrison family dispersed to their various roles, Emma found herself alone with Jack for a moment. Jack, she said, I want you to know something too. What's that? Watching you with your family, seeing how much this community means to you. It's made me understand what I want to build here. Not just a business, but a legacy. Something that matters. Jack's expression grew serious. Emma, can I ask you something? Of course. After Christmas, when the tourist season slows down and it's just the regular market days, will you still be here? Emma was taken aback by the question. Why would you ask that? Because I've seen people get caught up in the romance of Christmas in Pine Ridge, only to realize that the reality of small-town life is different from the fantasy. I don't want to. He paused, seeming to struggle with his words. You don't want to what? I don't want to get attached to someone who's going to leave, Jack said quietly. Emma felt something shift in her chest. Jack, are you saying you're getting attached? Before he could answer, a group of customers approached Emma's stall, and the moment was lost. But as she threw herself into serving hot chocolate and cookies, Emma couldn't stop thinking about Jack's words. Was he getting attached? Because if she was being honest with herself, she was definitely getting attached to him. The morning passed in a blur of activity. Emma's new hot chocolate flavor, a spiced apple cider blend with cinnamon and nutmeg, was a huge hit, and she found herself running low on supplies earlier than expected. During a brief lull, she looked over at Jack's stall and saw that he was having an equally busy day. Emma! A familiar voice called out. She turned to see Sarah Peterson approaching with her camera and notebook. "How's the festival going for you?" "Wonderful," Emma said, wiping her hands on her apron. "I've never seen anything like this. The whole town is magical. Mind if I ask how the competition is going? Any friendly rivalry happening?" Emma glanced over at Jack, who was watching their conversation with interest. "I think we're pushing each other to be better," she said diplomatically. "That's a nice way to put it," Sarah said with a laugh. "I heard Jack completely redesigned his stall overnight." "Care to comment?" "I think it looks amazing," Emma said honestly. "Jack's incredibly talented, and his new setup shows a level of creativity that's impressive." Sarah scribbled notes. "And how about you? Any new innovations for the festival?" Emma pointed to her chalkboard sign, which advertised her new flavor. "I've been experimenting with seasonal combinations. Today's special is spiced apple cider hot chocolate with homemade whipped cream. Sounds delicious. Mind if I try some?" As Emma prepared Sarah's order, she was aware of Jack approaching. He'd left his stall in the care of Tommy and Kate. "Sarah," he said with a nod, "getting the inside scoop on the competition?" "Just trying to capture the spirit of friendly rivalry," Sarah said with a grin. "Though I have to say, you both seem to be bringing out the best in each other." Emma handed Sarah her hot chocolate, and the reporter took a careful sip. Her eyes widened with surprise and delight. "Oh my God," she said. "This is incredible. Emma, this is seriously the best hot chocolate I've ever had." Emma felt a flush of pride, but also noticed Jack's expression tighten slightly. "Thank you," she said. "That means a lot." "I'm definitely putting this in my article," Sarah said. "Would you mind if I quoted you saying it's the best hot chocolate you've ever had?" "Not at all," Sarah said. "It's the truth." After Sarah left, Emma and Jack were alone again. The air between them felt charged with something that hadn't been there before. "Congratulations," Jack said quietly. "That was quite a review." "Jack, I'm sorry. I didn't ask her to." "Don't apologize," Jack said, cutting her off. "You earned that review. Your hot chocolate is exceptional." Emma studied his face, trying to read his expression. "Are you upset?" "No," Jack said, and seemed to mean it. "I'm impressed. And maybe a little inspired." "Inspired?" "I've been coasting, Emma, relying on my reputation instead of continuing to push myself. But tasting your hot chocolate today." He paused. "It reminded me that there's always room to grow." Emma felt a complex mix of emotions, pride in her accomplishment, but also a strange sense of loss. She'd wanted to impress Jack, but she hadn't wanted to diminish him. "Jack," she said impulsively, "would you like to collaborate on something?" "What do you mean?" "I mean, what if instead of just competing against each other, we created something together? A special festival blend that combines both of our strengths." Jack looked surprised. "You'd want to do that?" "I think we could create something amazing together," Emma said. "Something neither of us could make alone." Jack considered this, his expression thoughtful. "What did you have in mind?" "Your base recipe is incredible, rich and smooth with that perfect balance of flavors, and I think I have some ideas for seasonal additions that could complement it perfectly." "You want to improve my recipe?" Jack asked, but there was no offense in his tone, just curiosity. "I want to enhance it," Emma corrected. "Like you've enhanced your stall." "Not because there was anything wrong with it, but because there's always potential for something even better." Jack smiled slowly. "When do you want to start?" "How about now?" Emma suggested. "During the afternoon lull?" "Deal," Jack said, extending his hand. "But I have one condition." "What's that?" "Whatever we create, we share the credit equally. And the profits, if we decide to sell it." Emma shook his hand, feeling a thrill of excitement. "Deal." An hour later, they'd set up a makeshift laboratory in the storage area under Emma's stall. Jack had brought his base ingredients and equipment, while Emma contributed her spices and flavoring agents. "Okay," Emma said, tying an apron around her waist. "Show me your secret." Jack grinned. "You sure you want to know? Once I tell you, we're really partners in this." "I'm sure," Emma said without hesitation. As Jack began to explain his process, Emma found herself fascinated not just by the techniques, but by the passion he brought to his craft. He talked about the importance of temperature control, the way different chocolates responded to heat, the subtle art of balancing flavors. "Now you try," he said, stepping back to let her take over the process. Emma began to work, adding her own touches to Jack's base: a hint of cardamom, a touch of orange zest, a whisper of real vanilla. As she worked, she was aware of Jack watching her intently, his presence warm and encouraging beside her. "Taste," she said, offering him a spoon. Jack tasted the mixture, his eyes closing as he concentrated on the flavors. "Oh my God," he said, opening his eyes to look at her. "Emma, this is incredible. Really, really. The cardamom adds this warmth, and the orange. It's like sunshine in chocolate form." Emma tasted it herself and had to agree. The combination of Jack's expertise and her creativity had created something truly special. "We make a good team," she said. "We do," Jack agreed, and something in his tone made her look at him more closely. They were standing very close in the small space, close enough that she could see the flecks of gold in his green eyes. The air between them seemed to shimmer with possibility. "Emma," Jack said quietly. "Yes, I need to tell you something." "What?" "I think I'm falling for you." Emma's heart stopped. "Jack, I know it's complicated," he said quickly. "I know we're competitors, and I know you're still figuring out your new life, but I can't pretend anymore that this is just business." Emma felt tears prick her eyes. "It's not just business for me either." "It's not?" "No," Emma said, stepping closer. "Jack, I think I'm falling for you too." For a moment, they just looked at each other, the weight of their confession hanging in the air between them. Then Jack reached out and gently cupped her face in his hands. "What do we do now?" he asked. "I don't know," Emma said honestly. "But I think we figure it out together." Jack smiled, and then he was kissing her, soft and sweet and perfect. Emma felt herself melting into him, all the tension and uncertainty of the past few weeks dissolving into this moment of perfect connection. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. "Wow," Emma said. "Yeah," Jack agreed. "Wow." They stood there for a moment, foreheads touching, just breathing each other in. Then the sound of customers above reminded them where they were. "We should get back," Emma said reluctantly. "Yeah," Jack said, but he didn't move away immediately. "Emma, yes? Whatever happens with the competition, I want you to know that us, it's more important to me than any award." Emma felt her heart swell. "It's more important to me too." As they climbed back up to the market, Emma felt like the world had shifted on its axis. She was still determined to win the Golden Mug Award, but now she understood that she'd already won something much more valuable. She'd found love in the most unexpected place, in the arms of her competition. Chapter 5. Falling in Love. The week following the Christmas festival felt like a dream to Emma. She and Jack had fallen into a routine of arriving at the market early, working side by side to set up their stalls, and stealing moments throughout the day to talk, laugh, and share small touches when they thought no one was looking. Their collaborative hot chocolate blend, which they'd named Winter Harmony, had become the talk of Pine Ridge. They'd decided to sell it at both of their stalls, with proceeds going to the local food bank. The response had been overwhelming, with people coming from neighboring towns just to try it. "I can't believe we're out again," Emma said, looking at the empty container that had held their Winter Harmony blend. "I can," Jack said, grinning as he approached her stall with Coco in tow. "Mrs. Henderson bought 6 cups yesterday to take to her book club." Emma laughed. "I saw that. She said she wanted to share the magic with her friends." "Speaking of magic," Jack said, his expression growing more serious, "I have something to ask you." "What's that?" "The Pine Ridge Christmas Eve service is tomorrow night. It's a big tradition here. The whole town comes together, and afterward, there's a candlelight walk through the market. Would you like to go with me?" Emma felt her heart flutter. "Like a date?" "Exactly like a date," Jack said, his smile warm and hopeful. "I know it's public, and I know people will talk, but I don't care anymore. I want to be with you, Emma. Really with you." "What about the competition?" Emma asked. People are going to think it's strange that we're dating. Let them think what they want, Jack said, reaching out to take her hand. I'm tired of pretending that what's happening between us isn't real. Emma squeezed his hand. I'd love to go with you. Good, Jack said, bringing her hand to his lips for a gentle kiss. Because I already bought you a Christmas present, and I was hoping to give it to you tomorrow. Jack, Emma said, feeling touched and slightly overwhelmed. You didn't have to. I wanted to, he said simply. You've changed everything for me, Emma. Made me remember what it feels like to be excited about the future instead of just comfortable with the present. Before Emma could respond, Margaret Chen approached their stalls with her usual bustling energy, but Emma noticed she looked more excited than usual. Emma! Jack! She called out. I have wonderful news. What's that, Margaret? Jack asked. I just got off the phone with the Food Network, Margaret said, barely able to contain her excitement. They want to do a feature on our Christmas market, and specifically on the rivalry between you two. Emma felt her stomach drop. The Food Network? Yes. They heard about your Winter Harmony blend and how it's brought the community together. They want to film a segment about how healthy competition can lead to innovation and collaboration. Jack and Emma exchanged glances. When would they want to film? Jack asked. Next week, Margaret said. Right after Christmas. They want to capture the aftermath of the Golden Mug competition and see how the rivalry has evolved. Emma felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. National television exposure would be incredible for both of their businesses, but it would also mean scrutiny of their relationship. Margaret, Emma said carefully, what exactly have you told them about our rivalry? Oh, I may have played up the competitive aspect a bit, Margaret said with a sheepish grin. I told them about the hot chocolate war, the innovative flavors, the way you've been pushing each other to new heights. They're expecting quite a show. After Margaret left, Emma and Jack stood in uncomfortable silence. Well, Jack said finally, this complicates things. Do you think we should tell them about us? Emma asked. I don't know, Jack said honestly. On one hand, I don't want to hide our relationship. On the other hand, if they're expecting a rivalry story, they might not be interested in a romance story, Emma finished. Right. Emma chewed her lower lip, thinking, what if we just focus on the business side for now? We can still be honest about how we've influenced each other professionally without getting into the personal stuff. That could work, Jack agreed, though I hate the idea of pretending we're not together. We're not pretending, Emma said, stepping closer to him. We're just keeping some parts of our lives private. Jack nodded, though he still looked troubled. I just don't want you to think I'm ashamed of what we have. Jack, Emma said, cupping his face in her hands. I could never think that. You've been nothing but honest with me from the beginning. Good, Jack said, leaning into her touch, because I'm falling harder for you every day. Emma felt her heart skip. I'm falling for you too. The next evening, Christmas Eve, Emma stood in front of her mirror, trying to decide what to wear. She'd packed mostly practical clothes for her new life in Pine Ridge, but she wanted to look special for her first real date with Jack. Finally, she settled on a deep green dress that brought out her eyes, paired with her warmest coat and boots. She was just putting on her earrings when she heard a knock at the door. Jack stood on her porch, looking impossibly handsome in a dark wool coat and scarf. He was holding a small wrapped package and a bouquet of winter roses. You look beautiful, he said, his voice slightly awed. Thank you, Emma said, feeling heat rise in her cheeks. You look pretty good yourself. These are for you, Jack said, handing her the flowers. And this is your Christmas present. Emma accepted both gifts, touched by his thoughtfulness. Should I open it now? Up to you, Jack said. But his expression suggested he was hoping she would. Emma carefully unwrapped the package to reveal a beautiful silver locket. When she opened it, she found a tiny photo of her great-aunt's recipe card for hot chocolate, and on the other side, a picture of Pine Ridge's Christmas market. Jack, she whispered, tears filling her eyes, this is perfect. I wanted you to have something that honored your great-aunt, but also represented your new life here, he said. The jeweler made it custom. Emma turned around so Jack could fasten the locket around her neck. His fingers brushed against her skin as he worked the clasp, sending shivers down her spine. "There," he said, his hands lingering on her shoulders. "Perfect." The Christmas Eve service was held in Pine Ridge's historic church, a beautiful stone building that had been decorated with evergreen garlands and hundreds of candles. The sanctuary was packed with families and couples, all dressed in their holiday best. Emma and Jack sat together in a pew near the back, their hands intertwined. The service was simple but moving, with traditional carols, readings about hope and love, and a message from the pastor about the importance of community and connection. "This is beautiful," Emma whispered to Jack during a particularly lovely hymn. "It's one of my favorite traditions," Jack whispered back. "I've been coming here every Christmas Eve for 4 years, even when you were alone?" "Especially when I was alone," Jack said. "It reminded me that I was part of something bigger than myself." After the service, the entire congregation processed outside for the candlelight walk through the market. The stalls were all lit up with soft golden light, and the snow that had begun falling during the service added a magical quality to the scene. "This is like something out of a fairy tale," Emma said, watching children run between the stalls while their parents followed more slowly, chatting with neighbors and friends. "It is pretty magical," Jack agreed, "though I have to admit this year feels especially special." "Why's that?" "Because I'm not walking alone," Jack said, squeezing her hand. They made their way through the market, stopping to chat with other vendors and community members. Emma was struck by how many people knew her name, how many had kind words about her great aunt or compliments about sweet beginnings. "You've really become part of this community," Jack observed as they walked away from a conversation with Frank and a group of his friends. "It feels like home," Emma said, surprising herself with how much she meant it. "I never expected to feel so connected to a place so quickly." "Is that why you're staying?" Jack asked. "Because of the community?" Emma stopped walking and turned to face him. "I'm staying because I've found something here that I never had in Boston." "What's that?" "Purpose, connection, and—" She paused, taking a deep breath. "Love." Jack's expression grew serious. "Emma, I need to tell you something." "What?" "I love you," he said simply. "I know it's crazy, and I know we've only known each other for a few weeks, but I love you. I love your determination, your creativity, your kindness. I love how you make me want to be better at everything I do." Emma felt tears spring to her eyes. "I love you too, Jack. I love how you make me feel brave, how you've helped me understand what it means to be part of a community. I love your family, your passion for your work, the way you make everyone around you feel special." Jack pulled her closer, and they kissed under the softly falling snow, surrounded by the warm glow of the Christmas lights and the gentle hum of their community celebrating together. When they finally broke apart, both were smiling. "Merry Christmas, Emma," Jack said. "Merry Christmas, Jack," Emma replied. As they continued their walk through the market, Emma felt like her heart might burst with happiness. She'd come to Pine Ridge looking for a fresh start, but she'd found so much more. She'd found love, community, and a sense of belonging that she'd never experienced before. "Jack," she said as they approached her stall. "Yeah? Whatever happens with the golden mug competition, I want you to know that I've already won the most important prize." "What's that?" "You," Emma said simply. "Us. This life we're building together." Jack stopped walking and pulled her into his arms. "Emma Sullivan, you are the best thing that's ever happened to me, even though I'm your competition?" "Especially because you're my competition," Jack said with a grin. "You've made me better at everything." As they stood there in the snow, holding each other close, Emma felt the magic of Christmas Eve wrap around them like a warm blanket. Tomorrow would bring the golden mug competition, and next week would bring the Food Network cameras. But tonight was just about them and the love they'd found in the most unexpected place. The Christmas market rivalry had turned into something neither of them had expected, a love story that would change both of their lives forever. Chapter 6. The conflict. Christmas morning dawned gray and cold. with a biting wind that made the market feel less magical than it had the night before. Emma arrived at her stall early, her stomach churning with a mixture of excitement and anxiety. Today was the day of the golden mug competition, and despite everything that had happened between her and Jack, she still wanted to win. She'd spent the previous evening after their date perfecting her competition entry, a unique blend she'd created that combined elements of her great-aunt's recipe with techniques she'd learned from Jack, plus her own innovative touches. She called it Legacy, and she hoped it would honor both her family's history and her new life in Pine Ridge. Jack was already at his stall when she arrived, but something was different about his demeanor. He seemed tense, focused, and when he looked at her, his smile seemed forced. "Morning," he said, his tone more polite than warm. "Good morning," Emma replied, feeling confused by the shift in his behavior. "Is everything okay?" "Fine," Jack said quickly. "Just focused on the competition." Emma felt a chill that had nothing to do with the weather. "Jack, about last night was great," Jack interrupted, "but today is business. I think we both need to remember that." Emma stared at him, trying to understand what had changed. "What do you mean?" "I mean, I've been thinking about the Food Network interview, and I realize we may have gotten carried away with other things. This competition matters, Emma. It matters to both of our futures." Emma felt like she'd been slapped. "Other things? Is that what you're calling what happened between us?" Jack's expression softened slightly. "That's not what I meant. I just think we need to keep our personal and professional lives separate today." "Since when?" Emma asked, her voice rising. "You were the one who said you didn't want to hide our relationship." "I know what I said," Jack replied, his jaw tightening. "But I also know what's at stake here. The Golden Mug Award isn't just about bragging rights. It's about reputation, about establishing credibility in this community." Emma felt hurt and confusion warring in her chest. "And you think being with me undermines your credibility?" "I think," Jack said carefully, "that people need to see us as serious competitors, not as a couple who's playing at rivalry." "Playing at rivalry?" Emma's voice was incredulous. "Jack, I've put everything into this business. My savings, my career, my entire future. How dare you suggest I'm playing at anything?" "That's not what I meant," Jack said, but his tone was defensive now. "Then what did you mean?" Before Jack could answer, Margaret Chen approached with a clipboard and an excited expression. "Good morning, you two. Ready for the big day?" she asked, then seemed to notice the tension between them. "Is everything all right?" "Everything's fine," Jack said quickly. "Just pre-competition nerves." Margaret looked between them uncertainly. "Well, I have some exciting news. The Food Network crew arrived this morning, and they want to do some preliminary interviews before the judging begins." Emma felt her stomach drop. "They're here already?" "Yes, and they're very excited about the story. They want to capture the rivalry in action, so they'll be filming throughout the day." As if summoned by Margaret's words, a woman in her 30s approached with a camera crew in tow. She was tall, polished, and radiated the kind of confident energy that Emma recognized from her corporate days. "You must be Emma and Jack," she said with a bright smile. "I'm Diane Rodriguez from the Food Network. We're so excited to be here." "Nice to meet you," Emma said, trying to summon her professional demeanor. "The pleasure's all mine," Diane said. "I have to say, the story of your rivalry has really captured our imagination. Small town, competing hot chocolate vendors, the battle for the golden mug. It's perfect television." Emma noticed Jack's expression tighten at the word battle. "We'd love to do some quick interviews before the competition begins," Diane continued. "Get your perspectives on the rivalry, what's at stake, how far you're willing to go to win." "Of course," Jack said, his professional smile firmly in place. As the crew set up their equipment, Emma found herself standing apart from Jack, the distance between them feeling like an ocean. She couldn't understand what had changed overnight, why he was suddenly treating her like a stranger. "Emma, we'll start with you," Diane said, gesturing for her to stand in front of her decorated stall. The interview began with standard questions about her background, her decision to move to Pine Ridge, and her plans for sweet beginnings. But then Diane's questions took a sharper turn. "Tell me about your rivalry with Jack Morrison," she said. "What's it like going up against someone who's dominated this market for years?" Emma chose her words carefully. "Jack is an incredible competitor and a talented businessman. He set a high standard, and I respect that. But you think you can beat him?" "I think I can hold my own," Emma said. "I've brought something new to the market, and I believe innovation is always valuable." "What about on a personal level? Any animosity between you two?" Emma glanced over at Jack, who was watching the interview with an unreadable expression. "No animosity. We're competitors, but we respect each other." "That's interesting," Diane said, making notes. "Because I've heard rumors that you two have been quite friendly. Some people even suggested you might be romantically involved." Emma felt heat rise in her cheeks. "I don't think our personal lives are relevant to the competition. But surely personal relationships affect professional dynamics?" Diane pressed. "Are you saying there's nothing personal between you and Jack?" Emma looked at Jack again, hoping for some sign of what he wanted her to say. But his expression remained carefully neutral. "Jack and I are focused on our businesses," Emma said finally. "That's what matters today." After Emma's interview, it was Jack's turn. Emma tried not to listen, but she couldn't help overhearing some of his responses. "Emma's brought a fresh perspective to the market," he said. "Competition is always good for business." "What about the rumors of romance?" Diane asked him the same question she'd asked Emma. "Emma and I are competitors," Jack said firmly. "We're both serious about our businesses, and we're both here to win." Emma felt like she'd been punched in the stomach. Was Jack actually denying their relationship on camera? The morning continued with more interviews, footage of them preparing their competition entries, and commentary from other vendors and community members. Through it all, Emma felt increasingly isolated and confused. During a break in filming, she approached Jack at his stall. "Jack, can we talk?" she said quietly. "We're talking," he said without looking up from his prep work. "I mean really talk. About what's happening here." Jack finally looked at her, and she saw something in his eyes that made her heart sink. Doubt. "Emma, I think we need to focus on the competition right now." "The competition doesn't explain why you're treating me like we're strangers," Emma said, her voice tight with emotion. "I'm not," Jack began, then stopped. "Look, maybe we both got caught up in the moment last night, but today is about business." "Got caught up in the moment?" Emma repeated, her voice rising. "Jack, you told me you loved me. Was that just getting caught up in the moment?" Several nearby vendors looked over at them, and Emma realized they were drawing attention. Jack noticed too, his expression growing more closed off. "Emma, not here," he said quietly. "Then where?" she demanded. "Because you're acting like last night never happened." Jack was quiet for a long moment. "Maybe it shouldn't have happened," he said finally. Emma felt like the world had tilted off its axis. "What?" "Maybe we both got carried away. Maybe we let the Christmas magic and the competition and everything else cloud our judgment." "Cloud our judgment?" Emma's voice was incredulous. "Jack, what are you talking about?" "I'm talking about the fact that we're competitors, Emma. We're going after the same goal, and one of us is going to lose. How do you think that's going to affect whatever this is between us?" Emma stared at him, trying to understand where this was coming from. "So you're saying we can't be together because we're competitors?" "I'm saying maybe we should have thought about that before we got involved." "Before we got involved?" Emma felt tears prick her eyes. "Jack, you're the one who pursued me. You're the one who said you didn't want to hide our relationship." "I know what I said," Jack replied, his voice strained. "But I also know what's at stake here, for both of us." "What's at stake is our happiness," Emma said desperately. "Jack, whatever happens with the competition, it doesn't have to change what we have." "Doesn't it?" Jack asked. "Emma, if you win today, how do you think I'm going to feel? And if I win, how are you going to feel about being with someone who beat you?" Emma felt the truth of his words hit her like a physical blow. She hadn't considered how the competition might affect their relationship, had assumed that their feelings for each other were stronger than any professional rivalry. "So what are you saying?" she asked quietly. "I'm saying maybe we should focus on the competition today and then see how we feel afterward." Emma felt tears threatening, but she refused to cry in front of the cameras and the other vendors. "Fine," she said, her voice steady despite the pain in her chest. "If that's what you want." "Emma?" "No, Jack. You've made your position clear. We're competitors, nothing more." Emma turned and walked back to her stall, her heart breaking with every step. She could feel Jack watching her, but she didn't look back. The rest of the day passed in a blur of preparation, filming, and increasingly tense interactions. Emma threw herself into perfecting her competition entry, trying to channel her hurt and anger into her work. She could hear the buzz of activity around Jack's stall, but she refused to look over at him. As the afternoon wore on and the time for judging approached, Emma found herself questioning everything. Had she been naive to think she could have both professional success and personal happiness? Had Jack been right to worry about how competition might affect their relationship? But underneath her doubt was a growing anger. Jack had been the one to pursue her, to tell her he loved her, to make her believe that what they had was real and lasting. And now, at the first sign of professional pressure, he was willing to throw it all away. "Emma?" Margaret's voice broke through her thoughts. "It's time for the judging." Emma looked up to see the panel of judges approaching, 5 local business owners and community leaders who would taste and evaluate each entry. The cameras were rolling and Diane Rodriguez was providing commentary. "This is it," Emma said to herself. "Everything comes down to this." As she watched the judges approach Jack's stall first, Emma felt a complex mix of emotions. She wanted to win, but she also found herself hoping that Jack would do well. Despite everything that had happened between them, she still cared about him. But as she watched him charm the judges with his presentation and saw their faces light up as they tasted his hot chocolate, Emma felt her competitive instincts kick in. She'd put everything into this competition, and she wasn't going to let Jack Morrison beat her without a fight. The judges moved to her stall, and Emma put on her brightest smile. "Welcome to Sweet Beginnings," she said warmly. "I'm Emma Sullivan, and I'm honored to present my entry for the Golden Mug Award." As she began her presentation, Emma caught Jack watching her from across the way. For a moment their eyes met, and she saw something in his expression that looked like regret. But it was too late for regrets. The competition was underway, and Emma was determined to win. Chapter 7. Christmas Resolution. The judges huddled together for what felt like an eternity, their voices low and serious as they discussed the various entries. Emma stood behind her stall, trying to appear calm, while her heart pounded in her chest. Across the market, Jack was doing the same, his jaw tight with tension. The Food Network cameras captured every moment, Diane Rodriguez providing commentary about the intensity of the competition and the high stakes involved. Emma tried to ignore the cameras, but their presence made everything feel more dramatic, more final. "The judges seem to be having a difficult time making their decision," Diane said to the camera. "This has been one of the most competitive years in Golden Mug history." Emma's hands trembled slightly as she cleaned her station for the 3rd time. She'd poured everything into her legacy blend, not just her great-aunt's recipe and her own innovations, but also everything she'd learned from Jack about technique and presentation. The irony wasn't lost on her that her best work had been influenced by the man who was now treating her like a stranger. "Emma," a soft voice said beside her. She turned to see Annie Morrison, Jack's sister, approaching with a concerned expression. "Annie, hi," Emma said, trying to sound normal. "I just wanted to say that your hot chocolate was incredible," Annie said. "I've been drinking Jack's for years, and I have to admit, yours was just as good." "Thank you," Emma said, touched by the compliment. "Means a lot." Annie hesitated, then moved closer. "Emma, can I ask you something?" "Of course. What happened between you and Jack? Yesterday you two seemed so happy together, and today—" She gestured vaguely at the obvious tension between the stalls. Emma felt her composure wavering. "I think Jack decided that business is more important than personal relationships." "That doesn't sound like Jack," Annie said with a frown. "He's been happier these past few weeks than I've seen him in years." "Well, apparently that happiness came with too high a price," Emma said, unable to keep the bitterness out of her voice. Annie looked like she wanted to say more. But before she could, Margaret Chen approached with a microphone and a bright smile. "Ladies and gentlemen," Margaret announced, "the judges have reached their decision." The crowd that had gathered around the market fell silent. Emma felt her heart stop as she watched the head judge, Mr. Henderson, who owned the local hardware store, step forward with an envelope. "This year's Golden Mug competition was one of the most difficult we've ever judged," Mr. Henderson said. "The quality of all the entries was exceptional, but two stood out as truly extraordinary." Emma's eyes found Jack's across the market. He was watching her, his expression unreadable. Both finalists brought something unique to their hot chocolate, Mr. Henderson continued. One represented tradition and consistency, the mastery of classic techniques. The other represented innovation and creativity, the courage to try something new. Emma felt like she might throw up. She caught sight of Jack's family gathered around his stall, and her heart ached at the sight of their hopeful faces. "The winner of this year's Golden Mug Award," Mr. Henderson said, pausing for dramatic effect, "is Emma Sullivan from Sweet Beginnings." The world seemed to stop. Emma heard the words, but they didn't seem real. She'd won. She'd actually won. The crowd erupted in applause, and suddenly she was surrounded by people offering congratulations. The Food Network camera zoomed in on her face, capturing her shock and joy. Diane Rodriguez was asking her questions, but Emma couldn't process the words. Through the chaos, she looked for Jack. She found him standing behind his stall, applauding politely, his expression carefully neutral. Their eyes met for a moment, and she saw something flash across his face. Disappointment, maybe, or hurt. "Emma, how does it feel to win?" Diane's voice cut through her thoughts. "It feels incredible," Emma managed to say. "I'm honored, and I'm grateful to the judges and to this community for accepting me. What do you want to say to Jack Morrison, who you've just defeated?" Emma looked over at Jack again, willing him to look at her. "I want to say that Jack is an incredible competitor and an amazing person. He set the bar high for everyone in this market, and I have nothing but respect for him." "Jack, would you like to comment?" Diane asked, turning toward him. Jack stepped forward, his professional mask firmly in place. "Congratulations to Emma. She earned this win with a truly exceptional product. I'm proud to have been her competition." The words were gracious, but Emma could hear the distance in his voice. Even in this moment of triumph, he was holding himself apart from her. As the crowd began to disperse and the cameras stopped rolling, Emma found herself alone with her trophy and her conflicted feelings. She'd won, but the victory felt hollow without Jack to share it with. "Emma!" Lucy's voice broke through her thoughts. The little girl was running toward her, her face glowing with excitement. "Lucy, hi," Emma said, kneeling down to the girl's level. "You won!" Lucy exclaimed. Rose would be so proud. Emma felt tears threaten. "Do you really think so?" "I know so," Lucy said seriously. "She always said that the best hot chocolate comes from the heart, and yours definitely comes from the heart." "Thank you, sweetheart," Emma said, hugging the little girl. "That means everything to me." As Lucy ran off to rejoin her family, Emma looked around the market. Most of the vendors were packing up, and the magical atmosphere of the day was fading into the ordinary business of cleaning up. She began to gather her own things, the weight of the trophy heavy in her hands. "Emma." Jack's voice came from behind her. She turned to find him standing a few feet away, his expression serious but no longer cold. "Congratulations," he said simply. "You deserve to win." "Thank you," Emma said, unsure of what else to say. "I wanted to apologize," Jack continued, "for how I acted today, for what I said this morning." Emma felt her heart skip. "Jack, let me finish," he said quietly. "I was scared, Emma. Scared that losing would somehow diminish what I've built here. Scared that winning would make you resent me. I thought if I could just compartmentalize everything, keep business and personal separate, it would be easier." "And was it?" Emma asked. "No," Jack said with a rueful smile. "It was the worst day I've had in years. I spent the whole time wishing I could celebrate your innovations with you, wishing I could tell you how proud I was of what you'd accomplished." Emma felt tears prick her eyes. "Then why did you push me away?" "Because I'm an idiot." Jack said simply. Because I let fear make my decisions instead of trusting what I felt. And what do you feel? Emma asked quietly. I feel like I'm in love with an amazing woman who just won the Golden Mug Award with a hot chocolate recipe that was better than anything I've ever made, Jack said. I feel like I'm proud of her, excited for her future, and terrified that I've ruined everything between us. Emma felt her heart swell. Jack, I know I have no right to ask, Jack continued, but is there any chance you could forgive me? Any chance we could try again? Emma looked at him, seeing the vulnerability in his eyes, the hope mixed with fear. There's something I need to tell you. What? I couldn't have won without you, Emma said. The techniques you taught me, the way you showed me how to connect with the community, even the way you challenged me to be better, it all went into that recipe. In a way, we both won today. Jack's expression softened. Emma, I'm not finished, she said, stepping closer. I love you, Jack Morrison. I love your competitiveness, your passion, your dedication to this community. I love that you made me want to be worthy of this place and these people. Does that mean you'll give me another chance? Jack asked. It means I never wanted to take the first chance away, Emma said. You were the one who decided we couldn't be together and competitors. I was wrong, Jack said. I was so wrong, Emma. Competing with you has made me better at everything I do. Loving you has made me better at everything I am. Emma felt tears streaming down her face. So what do we do now? Now, Jack said, stepping closer and cupping her face in his hands, we figure out how to build something together, not just a business, but a life, a family. A family? Emma's heart skipped. I want it all with you, Emma. I want to wake up next to you every morning, work beside you every day, and fall asleep in your arms every night. I want to make hot chocolate with you and fight with you and make up with you. I want to be your partner in everything. Emma stood on her tiptoes and kissed him, pouring all of her love and relief and hope into the connection. When they broke apart, both were crying. I love you, Emma whispered. I love you too, Jack said. And I'm sorry I almost threw this away. We're both still learning, Emma said, but I think we're worth learning for. Definitely worth learning for. Jack agreed. As they stood there in the quiet market, holding each other close, Emma felt the magic of Christmas settle around them. She'd come to Pine Ridge looking for a fresh start, but she'd found something so much better. A home, a community, and a love that would last a lifetime. Jack, she said quietly. Yeah? What are we going to tell the Food Network people? Jack laughed, the sound rich and warm. We're going to tell them the truth, that sometimes the best competition is the kind that makes you better, not bitter, that sometimes your biggest rival becomes your greatest love. Think they'll like that story? Emma asked. I think, Jack said, kissing her forehead. It's the best story we could tell. As they walked out of the market together, Emma's trophy in one hand and Jack's hand in the other, Emma felt like she was walking into the future she'd always dreamed of, but never dared to hope for. The Christmas market rivalry had ended, but the Christmas market romance was just beginning. Chapter 8. Epilogue. 1 year later, Christmas Eve. 1 year later, Emma stood in the kitchen of the cottage she now shared with Jack, putting the finishing touches on a batch of cookies for the Christmas Eve service. The space had been transformed over the past year. What had once been a simple rental had become a warm, inviting home, filled with the merged possessions and shared memories of their life together. Something smells incredible in here, Jack's voice came from the doorway. Emma turned to see him leaning against the doorframe, wearing the cable-knit sweater she'd given him for his birthday, and the smile that still made her heart skip. Coco was at his feet, tail wagging hopefully at the sight of the cookies. Rose's Christmas sugar cookies, Emma said, gesturing to the cooling racks. I found her recipe in another box in the storage room. Of course you did, Jack said, walking over to wrap his arms around her from behind. That woman had more recipes than the Library of Congress. Emma laughed, leaning back into his embrace. She knew we'd need them eventually. For the cookbook? Jack asked, pressing a kiss to her temple. Emma nodded. Their cookbook, Sweet Beginnings, Recipes for Love and Life, was set to be published in the spring. It combined Rose's traditional recipes with Emma's innovations and Jack's techniques, along with stories about their romance and the Pine Ridge community. The Food Network feature had led to a book deal, and they'd spent months working together to create something that honored both their families and their shared future. "I still can't believe we're actually doing this," Emma said, turning in his arms. "Which part? The cookbook, the wedding, or the expansion?" Emma grinned. "All of it." Over the past year, Sweet Beginnings and Morrison's Mountain Cocoa had become more than competitors. They'd become partners. Emma had kept her stall and her identity as a business owner, but she and Jack had also opened a joint venture, a small cafe on Main Street that served as both a restaurant and a gathering place for the community. The Pine Ridge Cafe had become the heart of the town's social life, and Emma couldn't be happier with what they'd built together. "Well, believe it," Jack said, spinning her around the kitchen, "because in exactly 4 days, you're going to be Mrs. Emma Morrison." "I'm still keeping Sullivan professionally," Emma reminded him with a grin. "I know. Emma Sullivan Morrison has a nice ring to it." Emma reached up to straighten his collar, marveling at how natural this felt. The domestic routine, the shared space, the casual intimacy of a life built together. "Are you nervous about the wedding? Nervous about marrying you?" "Never," Jack said seriously. "Nervous about Annie's maid of honor speech?" "Absolutely terrified." Emma laughed. She promised to keep the embarrassing stories to a minimum. "Annie's idea of minimum is different from yours and mine," Jack pointed out. A knock at the door interrupted them. Emma opened it to find Lucy standing on the porch, now 11 years old, and somehow even more energetic than she'd been the year before. "Emma! Jack!" Lucy exclaimed, bouncing on her toes. "Are you ready for tonight?" "Almost," Emma said, stepping aside to let Lucy in. "Just finishing up the cookies." "I brought you something," Lucy said, producing a small wrapped package. "It's for your wedding, but I wanted to give it to you early." Emma accepted the gift, touched by the girl's thoughtfulness. Inside was a small ornament, a miniature hot chocolate mug painted with delicate snowflakes. "Lucy, this is beautiful," Emma said, kneeling down to hug the girl. "I made it in art class," Lucy said proudly. "Mrs. Morrison helped me with the painting." "Annie helped you?" Jack asked. "She said it was important to make something special for your first Christmas as an engaged couple," Lucy explained. "She also said to tell you that she's expecting grandchildren soon." Emma and Jack exchanged glances. They'd been talking about children more and more lately, and Emma was pretty sure Annie had picked up on their conversations. "Well, tell Mrs. Morrison that we're working on it," Jack said with a grin. "Working on what?" Lucy asked innocently. "On having a wonderful Christmas," Emma said quickly, shooting Jack a warning look. An hour later, they were at the Christmas Eve service, sitting in the same pew where they'd shared their first "I love you" the year before. The church was decorated even more beautifully than Emma remembered, and the congregation seemed larger. Pine Ridge had grown over the past year, partly due to the attention from the Food Network feature. Emma wore the locket Jack had given her, and she could feel the weight of it against her chest as they sang the familiar carols. She looked around at the faces of their friends and neighbors: Margaret Chen, who had become like a second mother to them; Frank Morrison, who had welcomed Emma into the family with open arms; Sarah Peterson, who had covered their engagement announcement with enthusiasm; and dozens of other people who had become integral to their lives. "What are you thinking about?" Jack whispered during a quiet moment in the service. "Just how much has changed," Emma whispered back. "A year ago, I was alone in a new town, terrified about starting over. Now I can't imagine being anywhere else." After the service, they joined the candlelight walk through the market. The stalls were decorated for Christmas, and many of the vendors had set up special displays for the holiday. Emma and Jack's combined stall was larger than either of their original spaces, with a beautiful sign that read "Sweet Beginnings and Morrison's Mountain Cocoa, a partnership in love and hot chocolate." "Look," Jack said, pointing to a familiar figure approaching through the crowd. Diane Rodriguez from the Food Network was walking toward them with a small camera crew, but this time her presence felt friendly rather than intrusive. "Emma! Jack!" she called out. Perfect timing. We're doing a follow-up piece on how the story has evolved. Diane, good to see you, Emma said, genuinely happy to see the producer who had become a friend over the past year. I have to say, this is not the ending I expected when we first came here, Diane said with a grin. A rivalry turning into a romance, turning into a business partnership and an engagement. It's like something out of a movie. Sometimes real life is better than fiction, Jack said, pulling Emma closer. Can we get a quick interview? Diane asked. Just a few questions about how things have changed. Emma and Jack exchanged glances, then nodded. They'd learned to be comfortable with the media attention that came with their story. So, a year later, how do you feel about the competition? Diane asked. I think we learned that the best competition is the kind that makes everyone better, Emma said. Jack pushed me to be more creative, and I pushed him to be more innovative. We both won, in the end. And the romance? How do you balance love and business? We don't balance them, Jack said. We integrate them. Our personal relationship makes our business partnership stronger, and our business partnership makes our personal relationship deeper. Any advice for other couples who might be in similar situations? Emma thought about it. I think the key is remembering that you're on the same team, even when you're competing. We're both trying to build something meaningful, something that serves our community and makes people happy. That shared goal is more important than any individual achievement. And what's next for you two? Well, we're getting married in 4 days, Jack said with a grin. And then we're opening a second location of the cafe in Burlington. Plus the cookbook comes out in the spring, Emma added. And we're hoping to start a family soon. It sounds like you've built something beautiful together, Diane said. We have, Emma agreed, looking up at Jack. We really have. After the interview, they continued the candlelight walk, stopping to chat with friends and neighbors. Emma found herself thinking about her great-aunt Rose, wondering what she would think of how things had turned out. She'd be proud of you, Jack said quietly, as if reading her thoughts. How did you know I was thinking about her? You get this look on your face whenever you think about Rose, Jack said. Like you're trying to feel her presence. Emma smiled. I do feel her presence sometimes, especially here in the market. I think she knew exactly what she was doing when she left me this place. What do you mean? I think she knew I needed more than just a business. I think she knew I needed a home, a family, a community, and I think she knew that the best way to find all of that was to dive headfirst into competition with someone who would challenge me to be my best self. Jack stopped walking and turned to face her. So you're saying Rose planned all of this? I'm saying Rose was a very wise woman who understood that sometimes the best gifts come disguised as challenges. Jack kissed her softly. Then I owe her a debt I can never repay. What's that? She gave me you. As they continued their walk, Emma felt the magic of Christmas Eve wrap around them like a warm embrace. The market was beautiful, the community was thriving, and she was walking hand in hand with the man she loved more than she'd ever thought possible. Jack, she said as they approached the spot where they'd first collided with his tray of hot chocolate. Yeah? Do you ever wonder what would have happened if I hadn't run into you that first day? Jack pretended to consider this seriously. Well, I probably would have sold a lot more hot chocolate. Emma laughed and swatted his arm. I'm being serious. So am I, Jack said, grinning. But I'm also completely sure that we would have found each other eventually. Some things are just meant to be. You really believe that? I believe that you and I were meant to be partners in everything. Business, love, life. I believe that Rose knew exactly what she was doing when she left you that stall. And I believe that the best competition is the kind that leads to collaboration. Emma stopped walking and turned to face him. Jack Morrison, I love you. Emma Sullivan, I love you too. And I can't wait to spend the rest of my life competing with you. Competing? To see who can love the other more, Jack said with a grin. To see who can make the other happier. To see who can come up with the better anniversary gift. Emma laughed. That's one competition I'm definitely going to win. We'll see about that, Jack said, pulling her close for a kiss. As they kissed under the softly falling snow, surrounded by the warm lights of the Christmas market and the gentle murmur of their community celebrating together, Emma felt like her heart might burst with happiness. She'd found everything she'd been searching for, and things she hadn't even known she wanted. The Christmas market rivalry had ended long ago, but the Christmas market romance would continue for the rest of their lives, and Emma couldn't wait to see what the next chapter would bring. And so, dear listener, our story comes to its gentle close. Emma and Jack have found their happily ever after in the snow-covered streets of Pine Ridge, where the Christmas market continues to bring joy to all who visit. As you drift off to sleep tonight, perhaps you can imagine yourself strolling through those twinkling market stalls, the soft snow crunching beneath your feet, the warm glow of lights reflecting off the windows of cozy shops. You might even stop for a cup of that perfect hot chocolate, made with love and served with a smile. In Pine Ridge, the Christmas magic never truly fades. It simply waits patiently for the next visitor to believe in the power of new beginnings, the strength of community, and the warmth of love found in unexpected places. Rest well, sweet dreams, and may your own Christmas season be filled with the kind of magic that Emma and Jack discovered together. Sleep peacefully, knowing that somewhere in the world there are places like Pine Ridge where love conquers all, where competition becomes collaboration, and where every ending is really just a beautiful beginning. Thank you for listening to Christmas Stories for Sleep. May your dreams be filled with Christmas magic and peaceful moments.